Okay, good morning. This is the site translation for Court Interpreters Class English into Spanish. This is the continuation of the Interpreting in Superior Courts Felony course, basically. And for those of you who are in the court interpreting program, this is a continuation of that particular course. A couple of new things that we are implementing effective this year and effective today, as a matter of fact. We're going to keep. We will be able to. I will be able to monitor you as you are doing your sight readings, and there's going to be a requirement for you to, if you want to pass this course, is that I monitor you at least 3 times. 3 times, could be 4 times during this whole 4-week class or program, or I guess course. I know that some of you do not come and watch this live. That should be limited to maybe only 1 week. The other 3 weeks you have to be live so that I can monitor you live while you are in class, and I can listen to your rendition and so on and so forth. So we're going to be changing that, and so if you are used to watching the lecture live, then you'll be fine. But if you're used to watching the lecture at a different time, then it kind of defeats the purpose, because in that case you should be in the on-demand program, not on the live one, on this hybrid program. So I'm going to be finding out who is actually in the class at all times, to find out who is there, and then keep kind of a roster of the people that are here live. And I will allow only one week to be to miss 1 week. That's it, out of the 5 weeks. The final examination will also be changed. During the date of the final examination, instead of being only written, there will be also an oral component where I will be monitoring you, and upon completion of the oral component, you will do your written portion of it. Therefore, the grade will be based on the oral as well as the written component. This guarantees that we kind of closed the loop. We didn't have the technology, but we do have it right now to be able to keep a little bit more information as to who is attending, who's not attending, whether give you a much more realistic grade at the end of the session, at the end of the course, because the bottom line, if you think about it, you are going to be performing verbally, not in written form. So the grade has to reflect that, and that's why we are going to be doing all this. So many changes, and it all starts with our ability to monitor you. And the first thing that I'm going to require, in fact, you could do that every single week when you access the site, and I'm going to require you to do this right now, is to click on top of the player. You see a blue button that says monitoring. I want you please to click on that button, and then it's going to open a Zoom type of meeting. Is going to ask for you, unless you have that installed already, and it's going to open that. Just go ahead and access it. You should do this every time you come in, so I suggest you come to class like maybe 5 minutes before. So even if the session has not started, you can just click on monitor. Monitoring is going to open another page. You take care of the Zoom situation there, and then in the name that I would like you to write, as your name on that Zoom meeting should be your last name, then a hyphen, and then it should be your email address. Make sure you spell it correctly. So it will be like, for example, Wagner, and then hyphen Wagner@interpreting.com. That's what I need in your name, okay, in there. So you can do the change there at any time. You don't have to have the camera on. You don't have to. That's not a problem. I have to be able to hear you, of course, which I will be testing that eventually once we start doing some work. But, like for example, I received Gilberto Gonzalez, which is fine, but if you can change your name to Gonzalez hyphen and then the email, that will be perfect. Although with the name is fine too, so it's up to you really. So what will happen is that I will, during the session while you are doing the sites, I'm not giving you any grade whatsoever, okay? I'm not giving you a grade when I monitor you a site that is a new site translation. But eventually, next week, I may ask for you to do one particular site translation that we did the week before, and I will monitor you and I will give you a grade on that one, okay? So what will happen then is that while you're doing the site, I'll be able to hear you. So I'm coming in and out. For example, I know that I have, what do you call it? Right now I have only Gonzalez. I'm going to put you, Gilberto, in what we call a waiting room. And that means that, Gilberto, that you're going to be waiting there. And then eventually when I decide to pick you, at this point it's just you, so you're the only one getting credit. But for that monitoring session. So at this point, whenever I want to listen to you, I will admit you. You won't even notice when you're doing the site, or you might notice, maybe it doesn't matter. You just continue doing the site translation as you did, as you were doing without paying much attention to Zoom. And so you can put Zoom in the background, really, and concentrate on what I have to say here. And then what I will do is, I have also received Lopez Bryant. Thank you. So I'll keep you there, Lopez Bryant. I'll keep you in the waiting room. And it says something about it. It has a wording there, so it uses the word proctoring. Don't worry about the proctor or anything like that. The wording is irrelevant. Just, we're going to be changing that. Just stay there in that room, okay? And then I will be, as you're doing the sites, I will be accessing each of you so that I can actually listen to you. Of course, you can always ask questions. The questions will be asked as we did before. You will ask the questions below, or on the side of this player where you have the option to ask questions. So this is unique to be able to monitor you while you're doing this practice. So again, as I was saying, so I tell you, for example, do site translation number 5, okay? So then you start working on site translation. You have 4 minutes to listen, 4 minutes to deliver, whatever the case is, and we'll see that shortly. And then once you start doing the site translation, then I will access you, your computer, basically, by admitting you into this meeting. And you won't even notice, but if you do, don't worry about it. And then just continue doing your work. And I will record that session. And then after that, I will send you back to the waiting room. And then once you're in the waiting room, I'll make some comments on your performance. And that recording, there will be a link, and you will receive the link by Monday, maybe even earlier, but I cannot promise, maybe at the end of the day today, but by Monday around 12 noon, you will receive the link. So we will send it to you to your email address, the one that you indicated in your name. And then you will be able to hear yourself, and you will be able to hear my comments on that. And that will count as one monitoring session. That's the way it will be done. So it's important that you do access this live, and the questions, everything is just identical as to what we did before, except that this new addition of these monitoring sessions that I can do while you are actually in class, which that's the element that we were needing, but we were able to integrate Zoom into our own platform, and therefore now we have this capability, so I might as well use it. It's going to be helpful for you in terms of being able to hear yourself and hear my comments on your performance, and it will be even more helpful not only in this class and next class, but it will be critical in the preparation for the state exam, because then I can really listen to you and give you some feedback on all the 3 different techniques. The other thing is that we haven't actually posted yet, you probably noticed that, the dates of when the live sessions will take place. We are missing one of the instructors who are in that live session. That we are missing it in terms of missing confirmation of the date. So when you access it, does say it will be changed on January the 10th, but it will be done on January 17th. That's by the end of the day. Now, I do have to tell you that your live sessions will be as they were before. And by that I mean that your live sessions will be, let's see if I can move this. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Okay, so your live sessions, I'm going to write them down here in a second, but your live sessions will take place on, just give me 1 second here. I've done many changes that I have to get used to. Okay, so your live sessions, you have two options for live sessions this quarter. It could be on Mondays, and this starts this Monday on 1/17, okay, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., and this is all Pacific Standard Time. Or it could be on Saturday and starts on 1:22, and it will be between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So those are going to be your live sessions for this during this whole quarter, including this course and the next course that comes up. Okay, and the whole idea behind these live sessions is for you to go and be ready now and have some feedback on your performance on sites that you have done here in class, that you studied during the week. So I will cover a site translation, for example. Today we'll do 2-3 of them. You'll see how the dynamics of this class goes, quite different than the other ones. And then after that, I'll ask you to review the site translations, and by that I mean review it during the week. Make sure you can deliver. Don't memorize them, but make sure you can deliver. And then what you will do in the live sessions is you will access and ask your evaluator there, am I doing a good job? How does it sound? Whatever the case is, because keep in mind that the following week, it's very likely that I will take part of the period of the class time, and I will ask you to deliver that into the opposite language, and it will be a site that you did the week before, meaning that it will be a site translation that you will be graded, and I will let you know. Every time you do a site for the very first time, you're not going to be graded, but there will be comments on my end, and those are done through this live monitoring. But if you are doing a site translation that it has been done already, in that case, you will have no other, no other alternative than just to do well so that you get a good grade on that. I'll be flexible with the grading, but if I realize that you are not studying from one week to the next, I'll reflect that in the grading as well. So those are kind of the different things that, and you notice probably there's a background and all that stuff. They have been changing a lot of things during this period of time now that we have been getting been working on integrating different tools that are out there available to this particular type of training course, and we were now in a position to be able to deliver it with the new package, so to speak. So having said that, if you have a question, you should always feel free to ask the question in the right below the player. You won't have access to me directly to talk. I don't want anybody to be interrupting the class, particularly when it comes to this and this next 3 courses. So you still won't have that. So won't necessarily be able to talk to me, while I am actually monitoring you. I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to discuss anything like that. But you'll be able to see that video, and of course, you can always send me a reply to my email and just ask me, what any questions that you may have. In fact, if you want to include an audio file with your questions, I'll answer them as well. No big deal. When it comes to vocabulary, it has to be in written form. It's very hard for me to write everything anyway. But if you have a question, you can write it, or you can just send it. We'll see. We're thinking about having an office hour for me as well during this quarter, so then you can actually come and visit me in case you have a question on any of the comments that I made. Because now when I'm going to give you feedback, you may watch the video and listen to you. I mean, it's going to be a very short video, a couple of minutes, and then you hear my comments, and you may have some questions. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to accommodate that, and most likely we will have 1 hour office hour for you available during the week, where you can access and ask me any questions you want, and it will be live one-on-one. It will be kind of using something similar to a Zoom platform, if not Zoom platform. All right, so having said that, let's just concentrate on the course and what the course entails, and the level of difficulty involved in dealing with this particular course. There are, as you probably realize already, the simultaneous and consecutives are skills that are basically practice-oriented. Maybe the consecutive needs some guidance, but the more vocabulary you know, then the better you're going to be with the simultaneous. And you notice, as you become really familiar with the expressions, the terms, and when they are used, you notice that your speed increases and so on and so forth. So practice is a very important element in that particular technique. When it comes to sight translation, the technique is very different, because sight translation requires that you read a document that is written in one language, say in English, and as you are reading it, you are verbally saying it into Spanish. So you are acquiring that by reading it, and then as you read it, you say that into Spanish. So you don't have this issue of speed of the original, for example. The original is not at any speed. You determine the speed. So you set the pace on how you're going to deliver that. So you got to set the correct pace for your state examination. You don't have any, you do have time, they do give you time to read that whole document. And they let you read the whole document. And then they tell you, okay, you got 4 minutes or so to read it, or 2 minutes, or 3 minutes, or 5 minutes, it depends. And then after you read it to yourself, then they'll tell you time's up, then you have to now deliver, which means that now you have to read in what you read in English, you have to say it verbally, out loud in Spanish. And that's actually what we call sight translation. The state exam has two different sections of it. One that requires that you read in English and you say it in Spanish verbally. And the other one is that requires that you read in Spanish and you verbally say that in English. That's actually the two elements in the state examination. So the state examination, you have a consecutive, you have a simultaneous, and then you have a sight translation from English into Spanish, which means that the original is in English and you are verbally saying it in Spanish. And then a sight translation from Spanish into English, which means that you are reading Spanish, but you're saying it in English. That's why the sight translation course is divided into two courses, basically. One's called Sight Translation for Code Interpreters, English into Spanish. That's what you're doing right now. And then the other one is Sight Translation for Code Interpreters, Spanish into English. So in this course, all the documents that you're going to see are going to be written in English. And you're going to always be reading English, and you're going to say out loud what is the transfers or the translation of that. It's kind of a verbal translation of that. And you're going to say that in Spanish. So you're going to be speaking Spanish and reading in English in this class. In the next class, you're going to be reading in Spanish and speaking in English. The techniques for both, depending on what we call that direction, from English into Spanish is one direction, Spanish into English is another direction. Whether the direction is into English or into Spanish, when you hear the direction means in what language you have to verbally say what you're reading. So whether your direction is into English or into Spanish, the skills that are required to do sight translations are kind of very similar. It does require that you somehow you have command of style in the delivery, and there are a lot of different things that are kind of required, and we're going to be developing that in this course, and then also in the next course. And you may say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, for example, when I'm reading in English and I'm saying it in Spanish, I need to have a uniform tone of voice. The pace has to be uniform. You don't want to go very fast and then suddenly stop in the middle of a sentence. Think, and what's the meaning of that word, and then continue. So it has to be pretty balanced delivery. You want to pause when there is a period, but not pause when there is no period. Okay, that's common sense, but that falls into the style. You have to have a good tone of voice, that's for sure, and you have to deliver this in such a way that it sounds to whoever is listening to you, it sounds that you are actually reading that document that is written in English. It sounds to the Spanish speaker as if you were reading that document, but the document was written in Spanish. So it should sound as if you are actually reading Spanish and saying just reading the document. But that's not the case because the original is in English, so you have to do that transfer. So the ideal scenario is that you match that as much as possible. Very difficult to do because you will find that in many instances, there are many variables that you're actually playing with when you are doing a sight reading. Some of which are, how do I say this? And, there are a lot of challenges involved. That is why before you're asked to render a document that is written in English, render into Spanish, that is why you are given sufficient time to read it. And in this class, we're going to start with maybe 4 or 5 minutes, but the state exam really gives you only 2 minutes. So they give you 2 minutes to read the document, the original document in English. And the question is what the interpreter or the candidate, what is the candidate going to do during those 2 minutes? Is the candidate going to be trying to translate that in his or her head? Is the candidate going to be... So that's something we have to develop. It's kind of a technique which is important for your state exam. At this point, and in this particular lecture today, when I'll give you 5 minutes to read a document, it just really means 5 minutes to read a document. You can do whatever you want, basically. Now, you cannot use reference material. You cannot use a dictionary. And then the next question, of course, is what happens if you come across a term that you don't know in that sentence? If you can still deliver the sentence, then deliver the sentence, right? Because not knowing one term sometimes is not that crucial because you can still convey the message of that sentence. If that's the case, convey the message of that sentence. But sometimes some terms are really critical that if you don't know the meaning of that term, then the message is very obscure. It's not very clear. When that occurs, we say that the interpreter switches to a linguistic transfer versus more like a localized transfer. We're going to see what this means later on. And by that I mean that you just basically interpret the words, and when you come across the word that you don't know, you just leave it in the original language. In this case, it will be in English. The name of the game here is to transfer the sight translation based on the message that it conveys. That's the name of the game. It's not about transferring each word in the sight translation, but rather the message in each sentence. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes, as you probably already know, you may see certain words in a message that doesn't mean that word really by itself. If I say it's raining cats and dogs, you wouldn't say llueve gatos y perros. So you are concentrating on the message. You will say llueve a cántaros or llueve mucho. Those will be applicable transfers. But if you don't know the word cats, for example, then in that case, you're going to switch into what we call a linguistic approach, and you will end up saying llueve muchos cats y perros. It's raining cats and dogs. Llueve mucho, or llueve cats y perros. And that's how you will transfer. The message will be distorted. The message will be inappropriate. It will be incorrect, actually. But the reason why you do that in the state exam is to catch at least some partial credit for that unit. And the partial credit will be minimum, not enough to make you pass the unit, but it will be sufficient partial credit that when you add them up throughout the exam, it might help you here and there. Remember, if you don't know, if you don't know the message when you hear it's raining cats and dogs, you don't know what the equivalent is, then you will get a 0 if you don't say anything. But if you say, for example, llueve cats y perros, you're probably going to get half of the value of that unit. So if it's 1 point, you may get 0.5. So it is a strategy that helps you. But the message really is completely distorted. So it's not the right way to do things. The right way is to comprehend what the original is trying to convey, and then transfer the message. Which that really means that sometimes you can transfer the message without using the exact words that are used in the original, right? So that's an important thing. Another important thing when we talk about messages, you can't really transfer a message from English into Spanish when you don't comprehend the message in English. If you don't know what the expression "it's raining cats and dogs" mean, if you don't know what it means, then basically you cannot transfer. In which case, you may end up transferring the words.